Funding for this program is provided by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of the complete line of Cajun King seafood seasoning mixes and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
Louisiana. Hello, I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to this great state of ours. We're real proud of our people, places, and food, and I'd like for you to know a little bit more about it. So join me and some of my friends as we visit the historical food towns of this state and cook up another great Taste of Louisiana. Everybody, and welcome to Taste of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, and boy, I tell you, you're lucky again today because we're searching out more of those great historical food towns of Louisiana. Today we're going to South Central Louisiana, in and around the towns of St. Martinville, New Iberia, and Jefferson Island. That's around Iberia and St. Martin Parish. Here we're looking at the Joseph Jefferson Home. This is built in 1870. 3,700 acres of this beautiful island was purchased for $2,800 by Joseph Jefferson, this guy who portrayed Rip Van Winkle for over 40 years in 4,500 stage productions. He found Jefferson Island when he was playing Rip Van Winkle in the city of New Orleans back in 1870 and just had to have the island. And here, imagine sitting on this great big veranda in one of those rocking chairs. As you walk into the Jefferson home, you enter a 12 by 40 massive hallway. And this is typical of most of the plantation hallways in South Louisiana. There's a little difference here, though, because on the walls of this beautiful, beautiful hallway is a mural, and that mural depicts the chase or the hunt, and that's why Mr. Jefferson came to Louisiana. He was in pursuit of the hunt. This was a reproduction of a mural that was in Alsace, France. All over the home is these wonderful books and memorabilia of Joseph Jefferson, the actor, who actually played Rip Van Winkle on just about every continent. He traveled the world as he made this sleepy old gentleman famous. Here's his signature. Imagine that, September 23rd. That's 1891 that we're looking at. This home is totally restored and open to the public every day of the year, just about. Maybe closed on Christmas, but they are open year-round. This is my favorite spot, needless to say. This is the kitchen, and when I entered that kitchen and saw this beautiful, beautiful turn of the century, I guess about 1890, wood stove, I just had to get right in the middle of it. It's a gorgeous piece, and it's fired by wood, and on Jefferson Island, no doubt, pecan wood, because that's where the great flavors of cooking came from. This kitchen is, again, totally restored with all of the artifacts, tools, and implements that were used to cook in the kitchens of days gone by. That was a little corn pan for corn muffins or cornbread. A lot of implements. Look at that old praline candy pot up there, just over a wood fire or hot stove, and make wonderful pralines. Out of the kitchen, where do you go? Into the dining room. Imagine, you thought that front porch was gorgeous. Look at this dining room from the 1870s. What a beautiful, beautiful room. Imagine those decorations, sitting at the table with Limoges porcelain. And this porcelain, this is a soup tureen, but in the bottom of it is a little bitty piece of porcelain, probably for steaming vegetables or potatoes or whatever, but take it out and you could put a nice big bowl of gumbo or something in that soup tureen. Everything was so elaborate back then, and even the salt and pepper shakers. These are silver salt and pepper shakers. The short tail is pepper, the long tail is salt, and you just unscrew the head and guess what? Shake that pepper right out. Jefferson Island, Louisiana. There's 5 islands that were pushed up out of the swamplands of Louisiana by the salt mines that exist there. The largest salt industry of the day was right there in South Louisiana. Most people don't really know that. But Jefferson Island was a private island, and when Mr. Joseph Jefferson came over and found those beautiful live oaks, he decided, this is where I have to live. Can you imagine, though, that he never spent one night in that beautiful home? Because there was a legend back then that said if a man was in his later years and built a new home, he better not sleep in it because he would definitely die in his sleep. So he built a little bitty cabin right in the backyard. I tell you what, if I'd have been Jefferson, I'd have slept in that place. What a way to go, is what I would say. Anyway, so that's a beautiful place in Louisiana. My guest today is from right there, 12 miles down the highway from Jefferson Island, Marcelle Bienvenu. What a wonderful lady. She's a cookbook author. She's a writer. She's a chef. But she knows a lot about St. Martinville, one of the most historical towns in that area, as well as Jefferson Island. And when we looked at all those beautiful scenes just a second ago, I tell you, we almost lost that beautiful place in 1980, but I'll tell you about that in just a couple of minutes. What are we going to cook? Well, the first thing I think we ought to cook is a dish that originated in and around the St. Martinville area. This is a chicken and okra stew. Now, when you think of chicken, look at all this stuff here. When you think of chicken, it was probably the easiest meat to come by in the early plantation days of Louisiana. Why? Because like pork, chicken and pigs just kind of took care of themselves. They could eat anything. They could kind of rummage around the backyard and root up vegetables and grass, and they could pretty much just grow out there on their own. Okra was brought to Louisiana by the Africans back in the late 1600s, and not only was a new vegetable introduced to the New World, but gave our famous gumbo its name, because the African word for okra is guinea gumbo, and when put into the pot of gumbo, that's where that name came from. So it makes a lot of sense, I guess, that the early planters would have combined a little bit chicken and a little bit okra to create a wonderful stew rather than a gumbo, which was a soup. And I want to share this recipe with you. I'll kick up this fire on my old black iron pot. And what I have in the pot right now is a dark brown roux, because as we begin most dishes in Louisiana cooking, we always begin with the roux. Equal parts of oil and flour that's slowly cooked until you get to different shades of brown. Every brown constitutes a different use in Louisiana cooking. A light brown for vegetables, a much darker brown for gumbos, and this nice medium brown would be used for stews or fricassees or maybe even a little touch of an étouffée. So in this pot, the roux would be used for flavor, for color, and but most importantly as a thickening agent with that great pecan flavor. I'm going to add to the roux the trinity of Louisiana seasonings, as we always do: a little onions, a little celery, a little bell pepper. And there's a reason for that, because in Cajun and Creole cooking, we're always looking for flavor. We're in search of flavor. And to be able to add great ingredients like onion, celery, bell pepper to the dark brown roux gives us just a little bit more toward that search of flavor, toward finding the flavor in the pot. Onion, celery, bell pepper, the trinity in Louisiana cooking. Of course, I have to put my garlic. I love garlic more than anything else, as you well know, and I'm going to put a couple spoons in here because this chicken and okra stew has a tomato base. And tomato and garlic comes to us from not only Spain, but the south of France, and of course Italy. And it's natural that those three nations lived right here in Louisiana, so it would find its way into the pot in massive doses. Good garlic and tomatoes. Okay, once this sautés for just a second, I would take my chicken, and I'm going to add these chicken pieces, which I've just taken a nice young chicken and cut it into 8 pieces. Notice I'm putting the wings in because that's my favorite spot. I always think that the chicken wings are the sweetest of all the meats, and I love to put them into the roux and pull them out a little bit earlier so that they don't all fall apart as they would if you left them in and let them cook in this stew for a long time. Another thing you may want to remember is that you might want to use an older baking hen or a capon in this particular dish, because the longer that old, heavier bird cooks, the better this stew is going to be. For additional flavor, I would add sausage. Now, you're going to notice here that I have a couple different sausages. I have the smoked sausage of Louisiana right here, and I also have the andouille. The andouille, of course, is the Cajun ham that's put inside of the casing, and I'm going to add some of that to the stew because the sausage not only gives us more meat, which was available on every plantation, but at the same time, the great smoke and garlic flavor that we look for when we add sausage to the pot. Okay, I'd saute this around just for a second. I'm trying to get that great chicken and sausage flavor to marry well into the roux with the onions, the celery, the bell pepper, and the garlic. At this point, I would add fresh tomatoes. I've diced the tomatoes. As I say, it goes perfect with the garlic. I'll add that in. A little bit tomato sauce, tomato puree, or just fresh tomatoes. If you have a lot of them in the garden, just run them through the food processor and push them in. I'll stir that in. This looks great already. I'll continue to stir that around. And then I'll add a little bit chicken stock. Now you can get chicken bouillon cubes. You can get chicken stock from bones in your own home after a nice chicken roast on Sunday dinner. Just take those bones and boil them with a little water and onions and celery and bell pepper, and you get a great stock. You will never regret making a wonderful stock to put into the pot because it's a concentrated flavor of the meat itself. I've always felt that the bones are where the real concentrated flavor in any meat is. In fact, there's the old saying that the closer the bone, the sweeter the meat. That's because the bones have all of the great marrow flavor. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the chicken stock into the pot, stir this around, and I would let this cook for about, I guess 15, 20 minutes so that the roux would blend well into the chicken stock, chicken and tomatoes, and then I would season it a little bit with a little salt, a little pepper, a little basil, thyme, any seasonings that you would like or that you prefer, or that you like to use, I should say. You don't have to use all of mine. A little red and yellow bell pepper. And then I've got to throw in my last ingredient, and that is the okra. The big bowl of okra I've already sliced, and they're really nice and all uniform in shape and size. And, of course, you can get okra in the can. You can get it frozen, or you can just get it fresh in your vegetable case in any store. I'm going to add those right down into the stock. And you can imagine all of this great flavor that's going to come together as the stew with the sausage and the chicken. That chicken's almost falling apart already, and I just put it into the pot. So you can imagine how tender this dish is going to be. A little green onions and parsley can always be added right toward the end to just kind of finish the dish. And, of course, always reserve the finished seasonings of pepper and salt right toward the end of the dish. Let all the natural flavors come together in the pot first. So I'll just go ahead and turn that little flame off there because I have a bowl of it already done. I would cook this for about, I guess another hour for sure, because I want those good flavors to really come together quickly in the pot. But at the same time, I have to allow that brown roux to cook a little bit and those flavors to develop. So don't rush it, but remember that chicken cooks quickly. Pull those wings out if you're like me and you'll love it. Take a look at this big bowl of that stew. Now, I could spoon some of it up. Fact is, I will. I'm going to take my little bowl, and I'm going to spoon a little touch of this stew with the sausage and all right on top of my little duck. You see what I put in the bowl first? I put my wing in there. Love that wing. And what you have is a stew. It's not a soup. It's very rich, very thick. It's full of vegetables, full of meat. So you have your starch, your vegetables, your rice, everything right there. Let me get this out of the way. And I'll decorate it with a little red pepper, certainly a little yellow pepper, and maybe even a little purple cabbage to give it those three colors that I love so much, the colors of Mardi Gras. And that basically is the chicken and okra stew served over rice. What a great, great dish. And I'm going to move that out because we'll eat that big pot of it later. Okay, the next dish. Well, you saw that in the area of Jefferson Island, you heard the name, it's an island, which means that there's a lot of water. And where there's water in Louisiana, there's a lot of shrimp. And I want to show you this beautiful bowl here. Yeah, I know it. Are you just sitting over there dying as you look at these gorgeous shrimp? This is about a 10 count to the pound. Look at the size. I'll give you a hint. Look at the size of that shrimp. Well, in Louisiana, shrimp is a major, major industry. Literally thousands upon thousands of dollars in shrimp are pulled out of our waters every year. And of course, we boil shrimp. Shrimp Creole, one of the most famous dishes in Louisiana. But a dish that I've discovered not only here, but as I travel around the world as well, is a dish that's called drunken shrimp. No, I'm not drunk. Drunken shrimp. That's the name of the dish. And I want to show you how we're going to do this. This is a steamed dish. We're going to actually steam the shrimp in beer. Now, some people say that this dish originated in the Orient. Maybe it did, but I'm going to begin by putting the beautiful shrimp in the bottom of my little baking pan here. And you can use any size shrimp that you can find in your local seafood market. However, the bigger the shrimp, the better, and they should be head-on, because the head-on shrimp will keep all of that great shrimp flavor inside the shrimp, so when you get ready to eat them, yeah, you can believe me, you want to suck those heads, as we do in Louisiana, and get that great beer flavor and all out of there. Look at the ingredients I have here to go in to the drunken shrimp pan. I've got some wonderful little red sweet peppers. These are sweet, but there's a little bitty touch of heat to them as well. I've got some wonderful bay leaves that's going to go down inside of there. And then some carrots. All of these will be edible. Some nice little potatoes, garlic, celery. Imagine all these nice things. Some onions, all going down over the shrimp. And then some corn. And the corn I've cut into little bitty circles like this so that they cook real quickly. I'm going to cut this fire on, get some heat going here, because into this pan I'm going to put, you ready for this? I'm going to put about 4 or 5 bottles of beer right down into the shrimp. Imagine this. This is beer right out of the bottles. In the Orient, the shrimp are actually steamed in none other than sake or rice wine. I would allow these things to come to a boil, and then I'm going to season with the peppercorns. And I want you to look at the different peppercorns that I'm going to put into this dish. Look at them right here, if you would. I've got black, I've got white, I've got green, and I've got colored. All of these different peppercorns are going to go in to flavor the drunken shrimp. A little bit of those in there, a little white, a little green, a little multicolored. And most of these are going to be nice sweet peppers, so you don't have to worry about them being too hot. And then a couple slices of lemon. And how long will it take to steam these shrimp? I can guarantee you it won't be very long, because shrimp steam quickly, very quickly. About 5 minutes or so, that beer will come to a rolling boil, and those shrimp will be perfectly steamed. And then I would allow them to sit in that beer to pick up all of the great flavor and marinate just a little bit before I put them into a bowl and started to break into them and eat them. So I would let this boil here for just a second before I took them off of the fire and allowed them to steam. Okay, what would I serve some of this with? Well, look at this plate here. Wonderful big old platter of stuffed eggplant. Crab meat stuffed eggplant would go well with any of these dishes from Jefferson Island. Okay, I told you I had a wonderful friend coming to visit with me in the kitchen, Marcelle Bienvenue. She's a cookbook writer, she's a chef, and she's a great friend. How you doing?
Bonjour, how you doing,
Ça va? How you doing? Good
Fine,
to see you.
fine.
I hadn't seen you in so long.
Well, I wanted to mail you a copy of my book, and I just decided to come bring it to you in person.
This is your new book.
Right.
Now, you know, look at this title. You're not going to believe this. Everybody in Louisiana will understand this quickly. Who's your mama? Are you Catholic? And can you make a roux? That's a great title. Well, how did you come up with it? I know how you come up with it. Tell
Well,
me
it's the
that.
criteria by which Acadians allow non-natives into their family. We need to know, we're very curious people, so we need to know about you and anybody that comes to our area. And I just thought it was very, very appropriate. And it's a cookbook about family recipes.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to treasure it. Now,
Okay.
this isn't a hint. Now, you don't think I have
you
to have
might-
new
you might
recipes
get a
all
few
the
hints.
time. We saw some pictures a couple minutes ago of the Jefferson Island area. You live 12 miles down the highway. All of your life you've lived right there in the heart of Cajun country. And on November the 20th, 1980, there was a tremendous disaster that almost took that island away. And I want to share that with our viewers out here. And I want you to tell us a little bit about what happened.
Well, Lake Peigneur drained, and what happened was the water was sucked up through a mine shaft, the salt mine shaft, and it was almost a truly disaster. I remember it well. My father's newspaper was called right away to cover it. And I can tell you that the poor fishermen that were fishing that day thought they were literally going down the drain. It was just, I don't know how many billions of water that was drained.
Okay, now this is Lake Peigneur, which is right off of Jefferson Island, and this lake sat right on top of a salt mine, and a drilling company drilled right through the top of the mine, and 3.5 billion gallons of water went right down the tube, so to speak, and all the fishermen and barges and everybody else was circling around like the toys in a bathtub when you pull the drain. Not only that, but I remember when you and I went out here to visit the lake, we looked on the shoreline. 65 acres of shoreline were actually pulled right into that lake from the disaster. And this home, just if you can imagine, this brand new antebellum-style plantation house, which was being constructed right on the banks of Lake Peigneur, was pulled right into the water as well, with the greenhouses, the highways, and everything else. I remember sitting in my living room in Donaldsonville watching this on television and couldn't believe it. What was going on in the minds of the people there?
Well, I think they thought the whole island was going to just be lost. And, of course, after everything was settled, we were very fortunate that the grounds weren't destroyed and the gardens are still there. So we're very lucky to keep
Well, I know. The whole world was watching that. It took 2 days to refill that lake with those 3.5 billion gallons of water. Well, I'm glad we still have Jefferson Island anyway.
Me too.
Marcel Bienvenue. Now, that's as French as you can get. Is that Cajun?
Well, bienvenue is French for welcome, as you know. My mother's maiden name was Broussard. That was the Cajun part of me. Bienvenue is a French name that I always love it when I see my name up on coming into an airport. But it means welcome. I think it's very appropriate. But my father's family was from France. My mother's family was from Nova Scotia.
Now, you're from St. Martinville. That's the heart of Acadiana, the heart of Cajun country. I'm on the river. We have a definition for Cajun and Creole. I know you must have one from the prairie. Quickly, what's your definition of Cajun and Creole?
Well, Acadian, the Acadians were farmers and trappers and fishermen who were deported out of what is now Nova Scotia and found their way to southern Louisiana, where they were French Catholics settled there. And they were hardy people. They were fishermen. They were trappers. They were farmers. And the Creoles more or less lived in New Orleans. They were more sophisticated. And the food is the same. We cook in big pots like this. And the Creoles are a much more sophisticated kind of cuisine.
More European. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. That's the way, that's pretty much the same definition. Talking about cuisine, I want to do two things. Well, I want to keep talking, but I want you to take a look at my drunken shrimp right here. Let's take a quick look at our drunken shrimp.
Well, those are the biggest shrimp, and that smells divine.
Take a look at this. Isn't that great? In beer. And I'm going to put that in a big bowl later on, and we're going to get at it, because this is one of the great ways to do shrimp. But I want them to marinate just a little while and pick up some of that great flavor. So I'll move this right off of the fire. Now, last time you and I played in the kitchen, we did bananas, Foster, and a couple of desserts, but we came up with a recipe for a pecan praline dessert that I want to share with all of our friends out here. Since you're such a great chef yourself, take that little skillet and put it on the fire. I want you to pour about a block of butter in there, about a quarter pound of butter. Now, bananas Foster is normally made with brown sugar and bananas, but we put a little twist on top of this, and I'm going to put into that butter, and I want you to keep stirring that. We're going to put some brown sugar right down into the skillet, and then I'm going to put some of my famous Louisiana cane syrup.
I love cane syrup.
I have to have cane
syrup.
Between garlic and cane syrup, I could cook for the world, you know? That's my two favorite things. We're going to allow this to melt just for a second before I put my praline liqueur and pecans in it. But I wanted to ask you, what was it like for a young girl growing up in the bayous and swamplands of South Louisiana? A pretty young girl, I have to say.
Well, thank you. I thought it was paradise. I thought everybody lived with beautiful oak trees on a beautiful bayou, and we had always fresh fish. My father was a hunter. So we had a 24-hour love affair with food. And I thought I lived in paradise. And we always knew about the stories of Evangeline and the stories of Mr. Durand's wedding with the spider webs. And, of course, Jefferson Island was there, Avery Island, Weeks Island. So I thought I was living in virtual Eden.
You know, you're a food writer today. You write for you've got a syndicated column. Of course, you're a cookbook writer, and you're a chef. You've owned restaurants in Louisiana, and one of the greatest restaurants I ever ate in, by the way, was Chez Marcel's, and I'm happy to say that. Now that so much has been written about Cajun and Creole cooking. Do you think that the world, or the United States at least, finally today understands our cuisine?
I think they're finally understanding it, but I think probably the worst misconception is that they think all of our food is very peppery hot. And while we do like our share of pepper, I think it's the blending of all the spices. And I think that they still think that it has to be so hot it'll make you cry.
Right.
And I don't think that's true, although we do like our fair share of pepper.
Well, I think you're right. People do still think that. I'm going to add a little bit praline liqueur. Now, you have to be careful, because sometimes that praline liqueur will flame up on you. You got that going there? I'm going to put a little bit more. Boy, can you smell that praline flavor? It's fantastic. Into that, I'm going to put a little vanilla. Of course, there's praline extract. There's butternut extract. There's a lot of different extracts.
Rum flavors.
Rum flavors. I'm going to put a little bit of that in there. A little bit cinnamon, nutmeg, all of those great flavors. Of course, feel free to use whatever you would like in there. And then, of course, how can you make anything praline
without my pecans?
Without these big, beautiful pecans here. I'm going to shake those right into the dish. Right off of these great Louisiana pecan trees. Now, I would take this particular dish right here, after it all cooks together, see how nice and thick it's getting, and I would take that and pour it over cheesecake. I would pour it over ice cream. I would pour it over a lot of different things, but it's one of the greatest sauces in the world. I want to ask you one last question, quickly.
Okay.
Evangeline, the heroine of the Cajun people, she is buried right in St. Martinville, in your hometown, right?
Yes, the story was that when she was separated from her fiancé when they were deported out of Nova Scotia, and she died of a broken heart when she found out he had married someone else. So, yes, she is buried in St. Martinville.
That's the great story about Evangeline, the epic poem by Longfellow, and I know everybody out there has heard about it. She's buried in St. Martinville. Thank you so much for coming and visit with me today, and thank you all, and come back again as we continue to cook up more great Taste of Louisiana. Thank you so much.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
Chef John Folse has written a cookbook that allows you to explore the exciting world of Louisiana cuisine. The Evolution of Cajun and Creole Cuisine is a full-color, 352-page book containing food history and recipes for gumbo, jambalaya, makshu, and other Cajun dishes. For your copy, send a check or money order for $24.95 to Louisiana Public Broadcasting at the address on your screen. To use your credit card, call toll-free 1-800-973-7246 or visit our website at lpb.org.